to Decode Dune, an exegesis of the Dune universe.
All right, so they made a Dune movie, and we saw it, and now we are talking about it here at Decode Dune. Oh, right, yes. Yeah. Welcome to Decode Dune. This is episode 25, and we are talking about the Dune movie. This event that some people have been strongly anticipating has finally occurred, and we are now here. So our plan today is we're going to record two different episodes out of today's kind of jam, and one of them is just talking about the movie, and the other is actually kind of starting a live stream of it, talking through it as we go through. All right, Jeff, what kind of stuff's on your mind? I saw it. I thought it was a very good adaptation. That doesn't mean I loved it, and it doesn't mean that I love Dune. I think to our listeners, I think our longtime listeners are probably aware of the idea that part of the interesting part of this podcast is me figuring out whether I actually like Dune or not. Because I still don't know. And when I watched the movie, I was like, this is good if this is what you like. And I'm like, I don't know if I do. And then I'm like, do I need to be watching this when I've spent this much time reading the book? And admittedly, I am mostly in life, I have been a movie first person, so I get to enjoy the richness of the book after watching the movie.
Yep.
And in this, it was an interesting thing where I was like, well, I spent all these hours reading the book and podcasting about it. Do I need to be watching this movie? I know what happens.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective to be taking.
I don't watch, just for the audience, I don't watch that much. I'm not big on movies. Sorry, yeah. So I have a lot of my takes are also related to the movies versus series thing and some of the way show business works as well. So a lot of it is sort of related to that, where I don't really watch many movies. I think I've watched about 2 movies in the past year and a half, but I watch a lot of series, right? So, all right. Anyway, that's it.
I love, so these thoughts never entered my head, so it's very interesting to me to hear this. So first of all, having read the books must have just completely ruined the movie for you because you knew everything that was going to happen.
Yeah, I guess. Like, so admittedly, I saw.
I'm never going to stop laughing.
I saw the Lord of the Rings trilogy before I read the books. I did not read the books at like 15 as people do, or 12 or whatever. I did not read. I didn't know A Song of Ice and Fire, aka Game of Thrones, existed until the show came out. They put that stuff out first. So if they make the Malazan series, I'll be like, well, I've already kind of started doing that. I've intentionally not read Wheel of Time because I'll watch the show and then I will dig into the books if I am so inclined. But right. I'm trying to think, like, if they make there's a couple Cormac McCarthy books that they could make into movies, and I'll be like, well. So anyway, I'm rambling. To the audience, no.
If they make Blood Meridian,
bro, that's what I was talking about. Blood Meridian.
Holy malarkey, would that be amazing? Like a tortured, weird dream.
If you need to see a movie of a book you've already read, that's where I come to is.
I hear you, and when you say it, my brain breaks. So yeah, if you have to see a movie of a book you've already read,
yeah.
I
mean, you know.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah, because you already know what's going to happen. Yeah, I think for me, having grown up with these books, spent a lot of time with them. Same with Lord of the Rings, by the way, and also same with Song of Ice and Fire, and others. Expanse is another example where I'd read the books, and then so I don't think about it that way. So let me just talk about my fiction reading process. Just, thankfully, it's different than my nonfiction reading process. I like to get into my head and sort of visualize that world and think about what's happening, much to the chagrin of some of our listeners. I take that open world approach, and there are characters who are underdeveloped, often NPCs, and I often wonder what's happening. Who are they? And why were they there? And anyway, so that's kind of where my head is at, and I'm a visual thinker. So I imagine the world in a particular way, and so one of the things that's exciting to me is seeing how other people interpret visually. Like so if it's movies, it's how do they see the world, and does that aid to or detract from or match with, or like, right? I'm looking for differences that are interesting. I'm looking for I'm looking for common ground with the filmmaker. That's kind of how, so I'm not really thinking about plot. Of course, I know the plot. I know most of the major things. So sometimes I'll be surprised, sometimes not. I like to, since this is a Dune podcast, let's talk about the David Lynch film just for a second.
Okay, sure.
The David Lynch film, in some ways, a radical departure in certain areas from the way that I visualized it. And in some ways it was spot on. I feel like the last 40 minutes of the film, where he's really trying to wind up book one, but is bringing in elements or hints from later parts of the series, I would say.
Talk about David. We're still talking about David.
Still talking about David
right?
Lynch.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I was like, okay, okay, right. Like there's a whole thing. You probably don't know this. It's worth talking about in relation to both these films. In the theatrical release of Lynch's film, and when it came out on video cassette, which is a format for film that probably no one remembers anymore. Anyway, it came with a dictionary.
Oh,
cool. They gave you a handout at the theater,
cool.
And it was inserted into the thing because there's
like when you used to buy CDs or cassette tapes, there'd be photos of the band and some artwork and the lyrics. And
this was a little thicker than your traditional liner notes, but exactly right. And it was like it was definitions for a lot of the terms.
I like that.
Yeah, it was cool. Of course, it's hard to read them in the dark, but thank you for thank you for providing them. Right. So I think Lynch went deep in places that so is it okay to just move a little bit forward? Like Lynch went deep. This movie does something different, which we can talk about in a second. But that's kind of what I'm looking at is differences, similarities. So my hot take was not one of, I know what's going to happen. It's what is he going to turn his attention to? What's he going to emphasize? What's he going to de-emphasize? And I myself felt rewarded. So I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah, but I see your point.
Well, I think there's a couple things to be said here. First, I'm in a cranky mood. I was out of the country for 2 weeks, and I think having deadlines like, oh, the movie's now out, as we need to watch it, or else we're going to be behind everyone. In terms of like Quinn's ideas, and Daniel Green already did their videos about it, and they already did their live streams.
Do we care about that? Like,
I
think
do. I do.
Oh, you do? Okay, I didn't know.
I felt that if we didn't do this today, we might as well have not bothered.
Oh, weird.
And
I mean, yes, and weird.
I think there's an element of trying to figure out what we're trying to do with this podcast, and are we trying to be in that scene, right? Like when people share, so obviously like your Quinn's ideas, he'll do like breakout videos about like just the Tleilaxu, and people in the same Dune groups that we were in will share that. And I'm like, we have this podcast, and it's a podcast mostly, and then we have our YouTube channel, and I'm like, are people gonna start sharing, like, so we're doing chapter by chapter, not really topics. So there's like, are people going to ever share our videos and be like, oh, the Decode Dune coverage of this topic was what I was hoping to hear, or that kind of thing. So I definitely did feel a sense that we needed to do this.
I don't know. I like the idea of doing this. I don't know if yeah. So I love talking about this content. So I'm excited to do it. I'm excited to do the thing we're gonna do in a minute, which probably won't matter to folks here, but we're gonna walk through the entire film. But I'll tell you what.
Well, and that's our next episode. So if you're listening to this, just be prepared. We'll release it as a MP3. And then you can do the watch along if you
ginormous one. But let me answer. Yeah. I don't care about. I mean, I think Quinn's ideas and other people's takes are good. I think Quinn's ideas are often not mine. So I don't always agree with Quinn. I don't care because I'm glad that he's there, and it's another way to connect with the content. But I don't feel in competition, and I don't even feel like I'm connected to what he's doing. He's attempting to become encyclopedic, which I think ultimately will just end up where the actual Dune encyclopedia ended up, because it's not, there's no such thing as a definitive take on what's happening in this work of fiction. So I don't feel in competition with them at all. I
don't either, but I do feel from a time to market standpoint, I do feel like not as many people are going to be listening to the Dune review if it isn't timely. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in the war for attention. I feel like you need to have your review out sooner than later. That's my assumption. Yeah. And that's, I think, the world we're playing in, the attention economy, right? I could be way wrong.
No, I don't think you have to. I don't think this is a thing where someone has to be right or someone has to be wrong. I think you're probably correct. I don't disagree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
I just never thought of us as being, I think the people who are listening to us, who we love, are doing it because they have found something compelling about the way that we engage with this content. Would I like more people to listen? Yeah. Would I like them to share the content? Sure. But I don't know. I feel like we're meandering our own way toward whatever audience we will accrue. Whereas I feel like Quinn and others have a very specific media plan. I have to tell you, I also noticed they got screwed a little bit. Whereas I think we're flying low enough on the radar that we could do things that they can't do.
What do you mean?
There was some controversy. They were trying to he's gotten some takedown notices.
Oh, yeah. Is that because they were? Well, I think they were accused of using copyrighted stuff.
Yeah.
But were they? Were they not?
Well, it's coincided with the debut of the film, so
Yeah.
hard to tell. If nobody seemed to care until it was the hot second before. Anyway, we have Mark Twain to blame for this copyright bullshit. But anyway, so anyway, but I feel like it would be great if we had a bigger audience. I don't disagree with any particular point that you made. As a matter of fact, I agree with them all. But on the other hand, I feel like we're going to find our own way to our audience. So I feel like we could have done it. Feel like we could have done this in a month, and it would still have value for people who have found our approach to this interesting. So like if they found our approach to the book or enjoying the way that we're meandering through the chapters of that book interesting, then I'm hoping that they'll find our approach to discussing the film. Like, I think we should do the same thing with the Lynch film and with the HBO film as well.
The HBO series when it comes out.
The Children of Dune. Oh, for sure. When
the sci-fi.
Yeah, for sure. When the Sisterhood comes out.
Yeah,
that's going to be bananas good. I'm excited for it if they ever get it done.
Right.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of Dune awareness and content. So I feel like this is a moment where if people were going to start to notice this might be the time. Because now this is going to cause a renewal and interest in the content.
Right.
Even beyond what the trailers and teasers were doing.
Right.
And I guess I would say this too. As I have learned from interacting on the internet with people about this content, there are definitely different kinds of audiences. Some of them are fun to interact with, others less so. And I like our people. I think our people are our people. And I think there's probably a lot more folks out there who are in our tribe than who aren't. And I'm hoping that they find us and we find them.
I like all of that. I guess if we would have had this conversation a week or earlier in the week, I may have not watched the movie this last night, and then we would have gone straight to the movie theater or something. But neither here nor there. I just want the audience to know I sacrificed for I sacrificed, right? I said I got to do this thing at a time that's not exactly convenient for me, and then I got to record this thing at a time that is not exactly convenient for me, because this is what we're here and we're doing. And maybe that's, no one's like, you didn't have to. And when people do stuff for me that I didn't ask them to do, and then they get resentful, I'm like, you didn't have to do that. But that neither here nor there.
Bad.
What?
I feel bad. I don't know. But you know what? I honor your sacrifice. And I thank you for your service.
There we go. So we saw the movie literally as early as possible. So let's
my family sacrificed for me. So for me, it was no sacrifice. I've been watching this movie nonstop every waking moment of the day since it. I have probably whatever I'm paying for HBO Max, probably not enough because I've watched that movie like 100 times already.
Really?
Yeah, you may not understand how big a fan I am of this content.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Thursday night. So I wonder. I would question: is the audience getting what they came here from this movie review? We've kind of meandered. Let's talk about the movie. So
we went deep into why the motivations of podcast producers.
Yeah. So
now
let's talk. What should we talk about? Should we talk about how we felt about the performance? So our trailer was big on Okay, let me just point out something. Here's something I found tough. When I'm just gonna random. When
go for it.
I wonder what it would be like to have not spent as much time in the book as we have.
Can I give you a perspective? Go.
Okay,
No,
go
you
ahead.
have one. Go for it. No, you.
My
go.
wife said pretty cool.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the thing.
Nice.
That doesn't necessarily mean, and I'm not going to quiz her because I'm not a douche, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean knew the story from the book, right? Like, oh, I clearly understand this is exactly why this. And maybe there'd be things that she'd turn around and be like, oh, I thought it was cool, and then found out I was actually
Right.
I misunderstood some things, if I actually started talking about it or whatever. That's neither here nor there. But I wondered about it from the perspective of someone who hasn't spent as much time with the book, because on the one hand, I really like right at the beginning, like this is what Dune I feel needs. It needs more conversations between characters that reveal the plot. So in the first scene or first-ish scene where Paul and Jessica are having breakfast, and she's like, if you want the water, use the voice. And then he does not a good job. And then she says close, and then says the Bene Gesserit. She says the Bene Gesserit training takes years. I was like, this is helpful, in my opinion, in terms of what an audience member needs to see.
Allow me to be a douche.
Okay, be a douche.
You misunderstood that scene.
Okay.
The voice did work on her.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Then she chose to tell him a fib.
Oh.
It was akin to, you ever play fighting with your old man and you get in a good shot?
Yeah.
And your old man says, nice try. But you connected.
Yeah.
And so my son and I had a pretty deep conversation. Clem, if you're out there, I know it was painful for you. Thank you, buddy. We had a pretty deep conversation about this. Yeah, she lies to him, which I found fascinating.
Okay.
For me, it was an interesting choice that they made. So I love that scene for a different reason.
Is it not possible that it worked partially but not fully? Like, I clearly saw that it reverberated and did the thing. But
well, you see her face too. She's clearly straining to control herself.
What I understood was maybe she was saying like it did enough, but it wasn't the full Magilla. I guess only she would know if it was the full thing or not.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Like, what full Magilla or not, she did not acknowledge what was good there. She only indicated that he had failed. Although she was clearly straining. So his response is funny. Which is what I liked about it. It's literally, it's the thing where you like tag your dad on the chin, and you can see that you caught him a little bit. You can feel it. It happened, and he's like, I don't know if everybody has punched their father. If you haven't, you should go do it now, unless that would get you arrested or cause any sort of real damage to your dad. In that case, do not do it. But anyway, he said, I can't. Well, we'll probably cover this in a minute. But he's like, it didn't. Right. So he is like acknowledging that she's not being fully truthful.
Okay.
Anyway, I like that scene for that reason. Yeah.
Yeah. I at least like that it developed. That it developed the world a little bit more and what sort of the things that are happening. Then there were moments like where I felt that was a bit rushed. I felt the scene where they did the whole how much money has been pulled out of Arrakis was a little raw. Some of
Dude, what about those lizard eyeballs?
lizard eyeballs?
Yeah, he fucking his like some lower lid pops up while he's
Oh,
doing
you
the
mean
calculation. Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Both of them intense, dude.
that was a
Yeah.
very cool. I don't know why
Yeah.
he has lizard eyes, but
Yeah.
thank you. That was
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah, that's when they go into their mind palace to do their calculations.
I'm with
I thought
you,
that was
but
dope.
what? But why did? But I didn't know the part where they develop actual lizard eyelids.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I want them now.
yeah, when the shout out mates did the
Yeah.
that felt clunky.
Oh.
And I guess then she was like, yes, she was talking over Jessica, or they were talking over each other, like, yes, a maker of the whatever. And then she's like, sorry when you hear prophecy. But that I feel like my general critique of the movie, I think, is that a lot of it feels like it was delivered on a platter for those who have read the book, as opposed to maybe, and this is a big thing, like in like Glenn Cook's The Chronicle or the whatever of the Black Company or the Malazan, is the author doesn't hold your hand. And I watched this and was like, some of it felt clunky. Not that I care about the people who haven't read the book, but I also looked at it and said, this feels a little rushed.
Oh, interesting. I've took that as a little bit of an argument with the book, where Herbert tends to write like a reporter.
Mhm.
Things are the way they are.
Mhm.
And so you don't get a lot of background. So one of the values of exposition through dialogue and interaction is, I thought what Villanueva is doing, I felt this too with the discussion about the date palms and a few other areas where he's really he's really setting the groundwork for a people who would it's one thing to understand why the Fremen would rise up against the Harkonnens.
Mhm.
They have real history there.
Mhm.
And we could by extension say, okay, so then once they understand that the Emperor was like in cahoots a little bit with the Harkonnens, maybe that's a reason for intergalactic, or sorry, a galaxy-wide jihad. But I think you need more substance. Really, I needed more substance in the books to understand the depth of the Fremen conviction in their religion, because that's what really leads to the negative aspects of what Paul finds himself enmeshed in. So that the jihad will come. We get that. It's like a foregone conclusion because he can see, and he's already describing.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too far, but already kind of setting that up. But I think you need the complement of understanding how deeply felt this is for those people. So my take on the shout out Mapes interaction was just that, really establishing for us that this religion is deeply held. So you know that it's a manipulation from the beginning by the Bene Gesserit.
Yeah.
And then you get the sharp contrast of like how deeply personal these religious beliefs are to people. So I wasn't so cynical there.
I think we're talking past each other just slightly, which is that in the book there's actually more understanding of what's happening, where she realizes when she says maker, she said enough. And shout out Mape's moment of like religious ecstasy is totally cool. And in the movie, it could have been better done, in my opinion. If I think the average viewer saw her say maker, and I don't think they maybe would have connected that with Shout Out Mape's reaction the way it's very, very clear in the book. That's what I'm saying, which sounds just to be clear. It sounds a little bit like the opposite of what you're saying, though, because you're saying Frank doesn't give you much in the book, and I'm like, oh, the movie gave you even less, which is a challenge, because
see it differently.
I would look at the movie and go, what a great opportunity to provide even more than the book.
Oh, so maybe what I'm saying is so it all comes down to the question of the purpose of the character Shutout Mapes. Why is she there in the book? Why is she there in the film?
Yeah.
So it depends on how you think about her role. So my feeling was, and still is, that her role is to express the depth of religious conviction in the Fremen people. And I felt like this brief interaction with a not a very long-lived character really delivered it well. So we literally see it differently. And I feel like it was an argument with the book, in the sense that I don't feel that the book really delivered the depth of that as well as that scene did for me. That could be because I live in this place where I'm familiar. I have a familiarity. So if I was seeing it from outside, I don't know how I would experience it. If I was seeing it without it, I mean, I guess I would understand that she's deeply religious.
Yeah.
But for me, it also, there's a lot going on here. That I don't know if it's valuable to dig into from my way of thinking.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. This is like, I don't know, the religious experience that is being portrayed. I remember reading it and just thinking about the relationship between these people and Paul. Oh, all these people are there really just to point to the fact that Paul has a special mission in this world or in this universe, right? I felt like the way that the Fremen are being portrayed, even like Thufir's sort of callous disregard for their religious conviction. He just, I don't know if you notice this, but Thufir Hawat really misinterprets what is happening. So when they're getting,
in the book or in the movie? In
the movie, when they're getting into the Thopter, and he's like, that's just, that's Harkonnen love or whatever. I can't remember the exact quote, but he doesn't seem to understand at all what they're saying as they're all yelling out, and they're all trying to get a look at Paul. It's just surprising to me that Thufir Hawat was not prepared for the fact that Paul would be seen as a fulfillment of religious prophecy.
Well, I mean, and I'm sure it has something to do with the fact that there's very little to no clarity as to what Thufir actually is in the movie, in my opinion. I feel they really mishandled him. I think it's clear by virtue of the fact that he's in a uniform and that he's doing things. I just feel like, generally speaking, the movie, it's one of those, I feel like the non-book reader is just dropped. And as a book reader, I'm watching it and going, huh, that's flimsy. I feel like the non-book reader is just dropped into this world.
Yeah.
And this is back to series versus movie.
Yep.
Although we're living in different times.
Yeah.
So if this were 10 years ago, I guess the idea would be you would buy the DVD of it, right? 6 months after it was released in theaters. And in knowing that a second movie is coming, maybe you'd be like, how do I learn all of the terms? How do I learn all of the things that were thrown in here? There's like a mystery to it. It's not really given to you. I guess I'll read the book actually, or I'm gonna watch this movie like 10 times, and then when the second movie, there's something about this versus like a 6-season show where you start to like piece together what all of the things are.
Oh yeah, like there's all of the interaction between Jessica Thufir and Leto, all of that time just disappeared.
Yeah.
There's so much of the story that just got cut away.
Yeah. Right.
So on this part, I absolutely agree.
Yeah. And it's crazy because it's a 2.5-hour movie.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would it have taken to explore the doubts that Thufir has about Jessica, like all that's right. To really explore Liet Kynes a little deeper, who I thought, by the way, fucking great.
Yeah,
I don't know what the fuck some of the people who communicate in the internet, I don't know what the fuck their issue was.
Well, let's be honest. The fact that they had the issue before the movie was even released shows you how closed off they were to the idea of it.
Okay, I really do know what the issue was. I just hate it. I had to explain to both my son and my daughter that there are people who have embraced this book who completely do not understand it, like completely. So if you don't know what I'm talking about these sort of fascist apologists who have decided that that this is their book, who just really don't get it. Right. Anyway, just one thing. We were talking before about a person who's never seen it, and I was going to interrupt you, but I want to tell you this because it'll make your day. Yeah. So Edie, my youngest daughter, she watched it from beginning to end. She knows we do this podcast. She knows a lot of things, but she has no idea. So she'd never seen it, hasn't read it, doesn't know. She usually wanders out at about the last hour and a half of a long movie and gets back on TikTok or hangs out with her friends or whatever. So very rarely does she make it the whole way through. She stayed the whole way. And when the movie ended, she lost her mind. She was like, fuck you, fuck this, what the fuck? There's no ending. She was so into it that she was like, I guess she thought it was going to keep going.
I mean, I was jazzed on where it ended. I actually went.
She doesn't know anything. So she was just literally complete fresh eyeballs. So her main complaint was, I have to wait a couple of years to find out what happens next.
This is what I mean, and this is what I'm talking about.
That's why I said
like they didn't do this Lord of the Rings style. Yeah. Now, you earlier in this conversation made the comment that they may have actually gotten like another 40 minutes worth or some full movie's worth. Who knows? You know,
I hope so. I hope they didn't waste their time out in the desert, because
I mean, I do think I actually turned off my video. I do think there's no way they're not going to greenlight the second one.
I thought they already did.
I saw that was from like a Fugazi, like the giant. It was called like I don't know what you saw. I saw something from a website called like Giant Robot or something, and I'm not seeing a absolute will. I'm still seeing it's not quite confirmed. So do you think this? Okay, so I guess I just can't.
If it ends here, that will suck. If they went into this with no plan to make all three, then fuck every one of them. Right.
Seriously. And that does have a damper on my enthusiasm for this. I'll be real. Yeah, I loved where it ended. It was
but only if you know that the rest are coming, right? Otherwise, fuck off. Yeah.
It was a Fellowship of the Ring ending, right?
Yeah.
Which was a bit of a weird moment to end.
Yeah.
Now, 20 years later, you're like, who cares? Just put on the next DVD.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And you also know that they literally all filmed all of them at once and all of that kind of stuff. You knew it was coming. But like, so I liked where it ended. It did give me a little boost of excitement seeing the knife fight. I wish they would have taken off their still suits. which may or may not be what they did in the book. I don't remember, but I thought they did. I thought they derobed. I thought they were like fighting in loincloths. And
Is that a thought or a
wish
or a fantasy? Like,
definitely a fantasy, if not, yeah. I mean, sure, why not? Who cares?
Why not? Yeah.
You're the
Yeah.
So yeah, get them all greasy and whatever.
What if they put on like spats, shorts, and a rash guard?
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't have a tremendous amount of love for the BJJ outfit. It's a thing that you do because it's necessary. It is like savate. Yeah.
Like if we put on giant Mickey Mouse hand gloves, that would just be savate, right? We traded in like manly outfits for leotards. And
I would like to I am a proponent. When I see sometimes, I think a lot of time like Nicky Rod, I feel like I see them grappling at their gym shirtless, right? Yeah. I don't know why we wear rash guards. I would be perfectly comfortable with at the gym we were in shorts and shirtless. That to me would make sense from top to bottom. I don't know why we don't do it. Maybe I have one word for you. Maybe Mike. It's a little extra homoerotic if you're just doing it at the gym, not at competition.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I have one word for you.
Yeah.
That word is nipple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The nipple.
That's why.
Male nipples.
We need our 10p pasties that we can put on, and then sure.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry for all the people who hate BJJ in our conversation. We just put a little peanut butter in the chocolate, but
because it's even a thing where sometimes class will end and there will be someone who's like, oh, they're mopping the mats for the next class, and then in the little like T shape that isn't fully occupied by class, it'll be like, oh, you can do one more round over there, but I'm already shirtless, and I'm like, I don't care, I'll roll. Yeah. And I do feel like there's like an opposition to that. Like there's like a, oh, you're like, already, no, man. You're already naked. Yeah, and I'm like, I'm not putting this thing back on. It's gonna be really hard to put back on. Since
we went there and we have very limited time because we gotta move on to the big extravaganza thing that we're gonna do. The knife fighting was both great and awful.
Okay, like from like a technical standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, well, so great in that the array of sort of knife fighting and the real like focus on how low tech the warfare in this part at this time in this part of the universe is, I thought was great. So it really emphasizes, I don't know where they're going to go, how far we're going to go on this, but it really emphasized for me the stuff that readers will already be familiar with. So it also emphasized the knife culture, which I really liked, but it was a lot of like nonsense dueling. And this is like
Paul James's fight, or
all of them. Yeah, every single knife fight, every single knife interaction or sword interaction in the film. Because here's a true fact.
Yeah.
That stylized Arnis, Kali, like Filipino knife fighting, that's not what knife fighting looks like. Knife fighting is fucking brutal. It's very direct. And it's very bloody. I have a friend, Tim brought this up yesterday, and so we have this friend who was a CSI guy for many years. And he said in every single knife crime that he was ever a participant in, he said there's always a healthy mix of both persons' DNA, blood. And that's because it's close up, it's brutal, and it's for real in ways that other kinds of fighting are not. So even in the training, this hand trapping kind of fighting is not something that would happen with a knife. Why? Because that's not how knives work.
Yeah.
So even with the shield, I had some complaints like, so if I don't know if we want to spend, I want to make sure we have enough time to get all your stuff in, but I felt like even with the shield, there were some like lazy moments in the deal. So like Paul's shield is active, and then he like kind of throws his sword onto his shoulder.
Mhm.
How the fuck would that shield know the difference between his sword and somebody else's? And why does it take effort to slow down when you're trying to kill somebody, but when you just want to throw it on your own shoulder, no problem? And the
Mhm.
answer is it would have bounced off your shield. Like,
Mhm.
so I felt like those inconsistencies were not terrible, but I just wish someone would get it right.
Mhm.
Meaning it doesn't have to be stylized, and especially with the Sardaukar, it shouldn't have been. They're introduced as the Emperor's blades. It
Mhm.
should have been fucking horrible, and they should have just been mowing through people and it should have been horrible. Why? Because it is horrible.
I'm not fully sure if I understand what you mean, but I will say this in response.
Yeah.
The fact that this is a series that takes place in a future long, long far away,
Mhm.
where people are fighting with knives and swords,
Yeah.
with space age equipment,
Yeah.
is in my opinion, worst aspect of Dune. It is
Oh.
the most wonky. It is the most visually repellent for me, where I'm like, we're what? Like, it's stupid.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess
like
it's
when they
stupid if you don't.
they rush out of if you don't know about, I mean, well, the movie did no explanation of laser guns with
Mhm.
shields. It didn't talk about the Butlerian Jihad at all.
No.
I appreciated that early on he did a bop bop bop.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. He
But
tests his
no, but-
shield, and then he throws his sword onto his shoulder, and the shield doesn't register it at all.
Oh, I didn't see that it didn't register. Do you mean it should have
He rests
penetrated it?
it.
Oh.
It should have done
flashed.
something.
Okay,
It
here's
probably
what I
should have
did-
bounced off.
Here's what I
right?
did like. I did like that he went fast, does not penetrate the shield, and then did
Yes.
like a slow and was like, oh, that's danger.
Yeah.
I didn't get to see in the Duncan, Idaho fight scenes. Only once did I see what I would have thought was the slow blade penetrating.
That's when he killed the Sardaukar on the floor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every other kill shot to me looked like another fast blade shot that ought not have worked.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't appreciate, like I appreciated early in the movie Paul showing the technology.
Mhm.
And later on, then it was I just didn't see it. Like I was like, these are all fast shots. This is not slow shield. And except for the one that you just pointed out is, yeah, he had him on the ground and then like did like a throat slit or like a slow Saving Private
We've
Ryan.
talked about this before, but it bears repeating since we're having this conversation now. As we've talked about before, I've done a fair bit of work with bladed weapons, swords and knives. And the way that cuts work, at least in my training, is the blade is pressed against the opponent and then movement follows. So cutting is not, there's stabbing, stab you with the point, that's real. Most of that is aimed at the face, especially with knives, like small folders or something you would hold in your hands. It's more like jabbing. It's more like jabs and crosses aimed at the face. Why? Because anyway, we don't have to go into why, but that's how that would work. With an actual sword, especially swording and sword in combat, I need to be connected to my opponent. This is true for any kind of like armor, especially cloth armor back in the day, right?
Mhm.
I need to get connected to them. And then I need to move against them so that the blade does its job.
Mhm.
Just hitting someone with the sharp edge, we're trained to think that's the thing, like you're hacking at them like you would with a machete.
That would be like a long sword. You need some serious weight behind it. And a lot of
You would,
momentum.
yeah, you would. And even with the long swords, as you and I both know, they often were not sharp. You're right.
Right.
So long sword is actually a whole different conversation because there's more grappling.
Right. But
Anyway,
yeah, doing this with a sharp knife, you will probably cut the skin a little bit, but you're not doing the you're not doing the real damage.
The real damage comes from a prolonged
with
connected engagement. Yeah.
With adrenaline, this would be nothing. This isn't going to be a thing for a while.
Yeah, even like single cuts or single stabs, especially around the rib cage or arms or whatever, which is why the face is a target, which is why under the rib cage is a target. But adrenaline means they probably will not feel those puncture wounds. Many times, anyway, we don't have to go into the details here, but if you watch how knife fights in prison work, which is really helpful to understand, it's that sewing machine stabbing around the defensive, like the arms come up, and it's just a constant sewing machine thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the defense is always two hands on the one arm with the knife, and you're trying to circle outside of it.
Mm-hmm.
They are just trying to stab you as many times as possible because they know that an individual strike or an individual stab is not going to end the encounter.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to add extra damage or something. It's because the only chance you have with such a short bladed instrument is to stab somebody repeatedly. It's gross. My apologies. But so I love that, like, stylized knife fighting is always very beautiful, but it's not really practical in any particular way. And so I just would have liked to have seen a more, I don't know, this could be my particular thing, but since we're really invested in knife culture or sword culture in this case, I think these things are important to understand why violence would be avoided. So your thing was like high-tech world. Why are they doing this? But in a high-tech world or in any kind of world, these things can still be effective, and you would want to avoid contact with someone really under any circumstance, even on the battlefield. I don't want to stand with you and do a bunch of like kung fu motions.
Right.
Gonna die.
Right.
Gonna die a horrible death. Okay. It's almost time for us to go start this thing. Is this a good stopping place for now?
I mean, now that we're plenty more to say, but I think maybe.
Well, let's come back for a part 2.
Yeah. All right. So Decode Dune episode 25. This was a rambling, not exactly the movie review we intended, and I think we're gonna revisit and do more. But join us on our next episode, which is actually going to be us walking through watching the movie.
Yeah. See you there. Bye.
Like and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. And to hear more readings, become a Patreon supporter at Patreon /Decode Podcast.